I just finished reading Elon Musk by Walter Isaacson. It's a big one. I finished it. I went through the entire thing. It took 20 hours. But it was a phenomenal book, recommended to me by Patrick Bet-David. I'm part of his elite mastermind. And regardless of whatever you may think of Musk, today I'm going to share with you all the great things that I got from this book, including a bunch of business and life lessons. And also, if you stay till the end of the video, I'm going to share with you the video game that Elon Musk compares to running a successful business. Okay, so let's go through some of my takeaways, life lessons, business lessons from reading Elon Musk by Walter Isaacson. All right, well, before we jump into that, I want to just share one quick thing here, which is that if you haven't read this book or you haven't read any of Walter Isaacson's books, I know he has a Steve Jobs a book as well. I was actually captivated, enthralled by the deep research that goes on in this book. I mean, like, it was astounding to me that he was able to capture intimate moments down to details, down to text messages. I'm not sure how he got all those sources, but it is quite incredible, and I think that in itself is quite a feat. So, check out the book, and let's get into the lessons. All right, fourth time is a charm. So, careful, there might be some spoilers in here. I mean, it's a historical, but if you haven't read the book, you're going to get some spoilers here of lessons from the book, obviously. Okay, fourth time is a charm. So he kind of details, Isaacson details the different attempts that Elon Musk makes to launch the first SpaceX rocket successfully, right? And what's fascinating is how through all the different trials, tests, the details, the intricacies that are required to do such a complex thing, they never lost sight of the vision, the goal, which is to get a space rocket up in the sky successfully, right? The fourth time is a charm lesson is really that it took 4 attempts to get that rocket without it exploding. And so many resources got put into this project that when they actually were successful in the 4th attempt, they were able to get a $1.6 billion contract the very next day from NASA, right? So this is around risk, and sometimes in business, something really good is on the other side of things that might feel bad in the moment. So focusing on the right activities and be willing to try again, focusing on the activities versus the result will come, okay? The other thing, Musk's Asperger's is referenced quite often in the book for his lack of emotional decision making, if you will. One thing that I reflected on was my own balance between logic and emotions in business, right? So think about yourself in your business. How logical are you? How emotional are you? Both are important. Sometimes you have to be brutally just logical without any emotion. And of course, there's the human element, the personal side that's involved as well. So reflect on your own balance between those two because I found I was doing that as well. Third lesson here, he's always focused on the vision and will seek finding another way if the first door doesn't open or leads to a dead end, right? Simple, but good reminder, okay? Musk hates what he calls the throw over the fence mentality, where people are just looking at to get the job done without considering all aspects of the final product, right? And what he's referencing is people, departments working in silos. Maybe this exists in your company. People work in silos, kind of working on their part of the project without really getting insights into the other parts of the project. So the example he uses is he wants engineers that think like designers, and he wants designers that think like engineers, right? There's a lot of conversation or talking points around taking big calculated risks, big but calculated, right? So businesses, of course, is a risky business. Business is a risky business. But for yourself, you want to reflect on calculated risks, right? When I talk about calculated risks, what I also found fascinating in the book was how Musk develops KPIs. They're key performance indicators in his business, analytics, metrics that he uses to measure success of his business performance. The one that they reference in the book is for Tesla and self-driving cars and self-driving technology. And the metric that they use is miles per intervention. Or sorry, interventions per miles, right? So how many times did an actual human driver need to intervene, how many times, how many miles did you have to go before there was an intervention, right? So of course, in the book they talk about 25 miles and 100 miles and 200 miles and then driving across North America, right? So that was very cool. So think about the key performance indicators in your business outside of just revenue and profit and some of the simple things. Like what are some complex KPIs that you can layer on top of each other that are unique to your business, right? That's what I found myself doing when I was reading this part of the book. Take responsibility for the final call. In a previous video, I talk about the fact that everything's my fault. I'll link to that below. In chapter 50, this is a good lesson. In chapter 50, Musk references toy companies and how toy companies are a great resource when you're thinking about how larger, more human, lifelike things can be built. And what he references is he has a little Hot Wheels or a toy car essentially. And the chassis, like the body of the car, is all kind of one piece, especially the bottom part of it's all one piece, right? So he goes to the engineers and he says, why can't we make our car like this? Why can't we make the bottom of it one piece? And the goal of that was to shave off as many inches as possible from the battery, which is located on the bottom, so that it's not as heavy. And it's very fascinating. It's very fascinating because he references the toy companies as inspiration to build quicker, more efficient, and lower cost solutions to otherwise larger builds. Okay, other lessons. He's focused on detailed, creative KPIs. I mentioned that. Regarding management, so this is where he's a bit colder, right? The quote I have here is, "You're not their friend, you're their judge," right? I'm probably less extreme in my own world, to be honest. Sometimes I'm the judge and sometimes I'm a friend, right? And I think for him, he's like, you're not their friend, you're their judge, right? So finding the balance and what that balance looks like for you. Okay. Another quote: when you've had success for too long, you lose the desire to take risks, right? So there's a lot of firing that happens in the book. People that he were like very close and in his inner circle become complacent, and then he's getting rid of them the next day, and they're kind of wondering like why. And he claims to sometimes make mistakes with this, but realizes that or says that it's suggests it's very pertinent to their growth and his success, right? So again, this is just one angle or one perspective on it. There's different management styles. We're talking about Musk, right? A lot to learn here. Okay. He took seemingly sensible executions and removed elements to improve it, using what he calls the delete philosophical approach, right? And what they mean by that is when you have a process, let's say in your business you have a 10-step process, looking at it, what are the things that you can get rid of that are just you on the hamster wheel, or inefficiencies, or creating busy work? This is where bureaucracy comes in, and he talks a lot about hating, bureaucracy and it kind of being against the idea of progress, right? So what are some things in your business that you can delete, in some processes in your systems to become more efficient and to get better results for your client? Exerting power to achieve goals. This line he says a few times, if you don't remove it, I will find someone who will. And it's kind of going back to the delete thing, because I think what would happen is that he would say, why can't we get rid of that? And he would get a lot of pushback. Because there might be an emotional investment from the person, or there might be an attachment, or maybe jobs hooked into that. So he often says, if you don't remove it, I'll find someone who will. Okay, good. Other things. I think one of the things that Musk obviously is a risk taker, and it made me reflect on my own risk taking, and I think sometimes I do play it a bit safe. You might think that is not the case because I'm a business owner. I take risks every day and what have you, but it made me reflect on my own, whether I'm playing it too safe or I'm too risk averse. And I have a line here. This is a Riasidi original. The benefit of being a free person is sharing my opinion, not being enslaved by potential judgment. And I think that's an important thing. I think it's important to exercise your democratic right to say what you think, and I think I'm becoming stronger in that, and more willing to put myself out there and have an opinion. I think it's important to have an opinion, right? Other lessons: never underestimate details. He is obsessed with details. Like, he would be, they talk about when the takeover of Twitter happened, and they were looking for inefficiencies in coders and who was doing code and who wasn't, and they basically had 3 people in the room, including Elon, and they were all looking over who had done like 10 or more lines of code in the last few days, or 100 lines of code in the last month, or there's certain kind of criteria, right? And what was interesting is that he was in the room for that, and he was the one that was going through it with them. So I think it's important, or the lesson here is that good CEOs, they will roll up their sleeves and they will get in the trenches when they need to. Otherwise, they know when to be strategic and have a strategic vision, right? So never underestimate the details. And I guess other parts of that include with Tesla and SpaceX and his companies. These are things that have life or death type outcomes based on how detailed they are on safety and security and how things work and operate, right? He also talks about his businesses having a transformational impact on the world. And he almost kind of says, or there's references that if we're not changing the world, then what are we doing? If we're not getting people on Mars or trying to make an environmentally friendly vehicle or trying to do things that are helping the world, then what are we doing, right? Empowering free speech, what have you, right? What else we got here? Draw a line and ask people to cross it. Musk, instead of asking who wants to opt out of the new hardcore Twitter, he asks who wants to opt in to the new Twitter. So they were going to send a company-wide email, and it was going to be like, click this button if you don't want to be part of the new Twitter. Rather than doing that, he actually flipped it and said, hey, click this button if you want to be part of it. If you want to be part of the new Twitter. It shows a certain level of commitment, right? So I think that's important, drawing a line in the sand and having people cross it, right? Commitment level. Avoid being binary in processing issues. So I did another video on processing issues. I can link to that below as well. The thing here is that there's always a third, fourth, and fifth option. And even within those options, there's sub-options and many different ways to execute it. And I think, especially in tech, where with coding it is binary, you got ones and zeros, it's important he understands that when to be binary and when to be not binary. And I think especially in processing issues, he's comfortable being in that gray area, okay? Positioning products for simple, digestible comprehension. So for Neuralink, which is like an AI solution where he wants to embed chips, computer chips into people's brains, to be able to be bionic, if you will, with thought and AI, and make sure that humans don't become redundant, essentially. Musk uses an example of helping a paralyzed person to walk again, rather than the complex way that the team had developed to explain it, right? And I think that's important too, because all of the things that he does, similar to Jobs and Apple, it's very tangible, understandable, easily understandable, electric car, you can see it. Rocket, you can see it's with the brain chip, okay, it helps people to walk, right? So taking something complex, making it simple again. And in our business, we do this quite a lot, right? We'll take a simple concept, look at all the details, make it as complex as possible, and then package it back into something simple that makes sense for the client, that gets results and what have you. And that's an important thing that I've learned in business. Okay, so this book is simply outstanding. Now at the top of my list, definitely would recommend it. Thank you, Patrick McDavid, for the recommendation. If you have stuck around this long, I'll give you the video game that Elon Musk uses or plays kind of obsessively in the book. I'd say the last half of the book, he's playing this game quite often. It's called Polytopia, the Battle of Polytopia. And it's kind of like a World of Warcraft, like an RPG type, there's a map and you can build things and build a civilization, essentially. Civilization was another game, or Sims. I used to play Warcraft too, so I can kind of relate to this. I also have downloaded the Battle of Polytopia because I want to get a sense of what it's about. But I won't go into details on these ones, but I'll say that there's a summary part where he goes through and expresses the lessons that he has gotten from playing Polytopia, and Musk essentially credits this video game as being the most like being a successful CEO. Okay, so here are the 8 points that he says, and if you want to see the explanations of these points, check out the book. Check out the book. Empathy is not an asset. Empathy is not an asset. Oh, there's a thumbs up. All right, that's the iOS. Okay, I believe empathy is an asset myself. So again, we're looking for different perspectives here. That's why we read books, not to be, led to one way or another, but to get well-rounded. I actually believe empathy is an asset. He says empathy is not an asset. Play life like a game. I agree with that. I like that. Like business life, it's a game. There's a beginning and an end. You can win, you can lose. Just put your chip on your token on the board, roll the dice, and enjoy it. Sometimes we take ourselves too seriously. Do not fear losing. That was another one. I agree with that one. Be proactive, of course. Optimize every turn. Double down when something's working well. Double down. I think that's an obvious one. Pick your battles. Pick your battles. I'm a big proponent on this one. I used to kind of not pick my battles. I would let the battles pick me, and that was a lot of emotional distraught unnecessarily, right? So now I ask myself, does this really bother me or not? Like, am I willing to stand on a mountain for it? And I'm not surprised by how often that's not the case. And then the last one is unplug at times. Unplug at times. And what's also interesting, I find, from Musk in this book is that he's not a typical CEO in the sense, sometimes you get the whole, like, they wake up at 4 a.m. and then they exercise and they do this. He's like a bit of a night owl. He's a bit of like a partier. He wants to go out and, it's a bit more lavish and, hey, teach their own. I mean, he wants to work hard and play hard, so good on him. I like to think I do that too. So there you go. So Elon Musk, great book. Thought it was awesome. Lessons from Elon Musk. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, subscribe to the channel. Check out one of these videos here. And I'll link to the ones that I referenced in the video. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.